Yeah, so welcome. I'll stop the drumming now as we're all in the room, and this is just part of bringing the energy into the space for us all, and setting the space. This is part of what I'm talking about, embodiment. How we create our spaces together, how we engage in the energy of shared spaces. And this is also part of the work that I do, which I'll go into a little bit further. But ultimately it's about transforming the space we share. I'm going to be looking also at the head, the hand, and the heart. And the work that I'm doing is, I believe, about transforming all the head work and all the hand work into the heart place, the heart space, which is a massive part of my experience within Sociocracy and other community work. That's kind of what feels very missing from a lot of the work that's going on currently. So I'll just go straight into my presentation now and share that with you all. Oh, no, I'm doing it the wrong way. Apologies. I've had this all practiced so well. And so an embodied experience, I've been looking at definitions and descriptions, and there's a few, and like absolutely, the idea of embodiment has its descriptions. The one that I've really connected with is Vivi's. This lady is more to do with holistic healing, and she talks about the experience registers in the body, brain and mind, and the innate capacities to learn and adapt. And I feel that this is a really important part of what Sociocracy is about. It's about having this ability to learn and adapt. Also, the other part that one of the dictionaries gave for me was about organise and incorporate. That's wonderful, because in Sociocracy, that's a lot of what we're talking about, is about efficiency and transparency, and looking at how we can do things well together with all voices heard. But most importantly, it's about dropping from the head into the heart. And this work is something that can be quite difficult to get to happen within shared spaces, because we're all so busy being busy and trying to be efficient that sometimes the head overrules actually what the heart and the heart space is about. And I'm just going to read one other quote, which is: strong evidence in favour of the idea that significant aspects of thought and language arises from and is grounded in embodiment. And that was the more recent one that I found, and that's to do with linguistic meaning. I was really amazed by all the different areas that were actually connecting with embodiment, from psychology, as I say, linguistics, curriculum inquiry, ethics, anthropology, and research. So it was fantastic. And I'm just going to invite you all, as part of this experience, it's very much experiential, so I'll just invite you all to put your hand on your heart and just take a deep breath in. And if possible, have both feet on the ground, but these things aren't fixed. This is just more about just giving One of the other parts that's really important to mention is that there are basic principles within sociocracy, those that are new to sociocracy and others that are more practiced. We are working with 4 basic ones, which is consent, circles, double linking, feeding information forward or maybe back, feeding information forward or backwards, and then elections. These 4 principles are what we all work with. However, there's also wonderful principles that have come through the Many Voices One songbook, which I just love, and they've come up with 12 within that book, and they're really great. And it's again talking about intentionality, looking at the tensions within the room, and this is kind of where I'm working with this idea of embodiment. is providing people the support of that process as we're all transitioning together. So, moving on to the next bit. So, heart space. Well, when I say heart space, it's okay. I'm not in love with you. I mean, in the kindest way, and that's also the Prezi moved on as well for anyone that's willing and interested in putting input in. It's not to do with this organ and the heart organ. It's to do with a space that we create within ourselves as we grow more. Now, I've just see that there's some points in the chat, so I want to make sure that I'm taking them if there's anything that I could be. Andy, could I ask you just to check the chat, please? And I'm sorry, like I don't want to get pulled too much off of what I'm doing.
Yeah, there is some difficulty understanding you. The audio is not very clear.
Okay, thank you for people that are like, is that any better? And so I can do a thumbs up on the screen because I can see you on the screens. Yeah, maybe my microphone. Apologies, my accent. I will try and speak a little bit slower and a little bit more with my timing.
There was a little dropout as well, just so you know.
Thank you. Okay, so co-creation. With my work in co-creation, it is about looking at a range of tolerance. And I found that the 5 agreements, which is based on Toltec wisdom and has been re-enlivened by a person that has ancestry of the Toltec community from southern Mexico. And this person is engaging people within the 5 agreements to look at being impeccable with your word, don't take anything personally, don't make assumptions, always do your best, be skeptical and learn to listen. Now, range of tolerance doesn't just mean the range of tolerance in your willingness to listen to other people's point of view. There's a range of tolerance in our experience of love, and our experience of instincts, as well as in anger. And so kind of what I'm looking at as well is range of tolerance linear? Is this something that actually is actually not in a fixed line, but actually much more something else? And these are kind of parts of the questions I'm asking through this. The other part that's really important to learn is that we've got self-inquiry. That's an important part of doing this work. And unfortunately, if people aren't interested in self-inquiry, it can make it very difficult to understand your range of tolerance of any of these things. And most importantly, it's about really understanding yourself before you can expect to understand any community or any other way of being. So we're looking at also how do we move things when it seems unmovable. And this is where I've found in my work as the part of my experience of embodied experience is about suspending your disbelief. And what that means is when you meet people and they say, yeah, I really want change. Yeah, I really would like, I want to do things differently. I'm working hard. And you talk to them about, well, for me, I've talked to them about the different things that I'm doing, and they're just like, nah. And sometimes it's the most frustrating thing, because these are people that are saying that they really want change, and if only there was a thing that they could do. So this is where I'm connecting with disbelief. So I've got another little action that provide for us all. It's not quite the picture in there, but it's called a shugo. I'm sure many people know what this is already, but I'm just going to invite you if you wish to. And so what it is about shaking your head and your shoulders. It's a bit like a shimmy, and that's it. And like really get into it, allow yourself to have but it's about shaking your head, because what brain research has found is that when you are faced by something that feels so disbelievable, if you can create some new neural pathways, it provides space for you to be able to accept this new language, this new idea, this new concept. And so I use that intermittently within my workshops and within my work, is to just support people in taking on new information and providing space within themselves to really embrace it. The other phrase for die-hard sociocrateers is good enough for now, safe enough to try. And this is a really important part of sociocracy, because we're moving away from everything being perfect, this idea of perfection, because we are perfect. We're perfect in every moment. We're perfect with everything we're doing. And we have to allow ourselves to appreciate that and embrace that part of ourselves. And so this is where I'm introducing breathing. Breath work is a fundamental part. And if I could just ask you all to just take a breath. And now I would ask you if you could all take a breath in through your nose, taking it from your stomach, filling your tummy up with air, and then letting it out through your mouth, and see if this feels any different. And there is definitely space created with conscious breathing, because absolutely we all do it. It's something that our bodies naturally do. However, I'm talking about conscious breathing. I'm also about pauses, conscious pauses, how they can help support people to drop from the head into the heart, so that they can feel inside of themselves how things are moving, how things are changing. The other thing is also I use, which I'm doing myself today, is timers. There's many people that with mobile phones, and I have that with different groups that I'm part of. However, we've found that actually having physical timers allows you to actually engage with time in a very different way. And I would recommend that you try that yourself. It can really support the stretching of time and also the equivalence of time, because many people in relationships, as well as in also organisations and in meetings, many people feel like somehow one person is having more of the time than the other and things like that. So it's very good to have people seeing how the time is being used. So I'm just going to do a quick check for time myself. Okay, so moving swiftly on, this is just a little bit of information about myself and my journey so far. I've spent a lot of my time doing event coordination. I was very lucky that a friend encouraged and got in touch with John Buck, and since we've been in touch, there's been numerous trainings in Scotland, Central Belt, and John has been a wonderful support and encourager for lots of different creative processes, which I'll go into in a minute. And I was lucky enough to also meet Jerry and Ted last year. However, Jerry was able to come to Scotland for a 2-day training. One of the last trainings I did with John Buck was a 3-day training, which was fantastic. It engaged a lot of what I've previously talked about. Also, another thing I haven't said is being able to sleep on new information. So a shuggle, a pause, and deep breathing can help with the way that you engage with information, but it's being able to sleep on it. And so part of within my training, even if it's just a 1-day training, I actually am encouraging people to take a nap. And that might sound quite funny for some people, but the thing is, it's amazing how much just getting people to slow down. Thank you. That's like, it's really good that having a nap on the new information can just sometimes just take away a lot of doubts or challenges. Another part of the work that I'm experimenting with is forum theatre and sociocracy, and John Buck was really great to play along with some of the ideas that I've come up with so far. And so this is some pictures from the last training that we did with John, and this is Gavin Crichton, who is a theatre director. And so we started to make pictures of visual displays of power, and it's also been really helpful to support the changing in mind, like changing in your understanding of actually when you're talking about power. What are you actually talking about? What does this look like? Not just in pictures, not in words, but actually in a physicality. And so this, again, supporting embodied experience of understanding of what we actually, this transformative place in language. And just looking at creation of support. So as I say, you know, John Buck has been very supportive on listening to my wild and creative ideas. But he's also a great example of how he is not limited by ceilings or walls. The latest book that he's come out with, which is Bossa Nova, which is Beyond Budgeting, Open Space, Sociocracy and Agile, is fantastic and is exactly part of what I'm talking about within my embodied knowledge, is how building together your own toolkit is a really important part of how you expand the creativity of sociocracy, because it is not just limited to governance of organisations or governance of companies, but also I'm working on sociocracy of self, which is still a work in progress, and so I can get back to you on that one. So last part, just before we move in, and so I'm just making sure of my time, is something I'm going to invite you for another embodied experience. So I invite you to sit back, be comfortable, and have a little listen. And we're going to have an experience of something else that has been working very much. And I'm just
We don't realize that whenever we push against life, we're just creating resistance. We're creating opposition, and we're creating extra effort for ourselves that's not really required. So in this quick release, we're going to dissolve some of the push. So in this moment, allow yourself to review your life and think of a situation that this might apply to, where you've been pushing instead of allowing. And then in this moment, could you allow yourself to welcome the push, to welcome the effort, to welcome the resistance that brings up inside? And then could you welcome any wanting to do something with or about it, including push it away or hold it close? Notice there it is again. And then could you welcome any sense that this is personal, about you or who you are? And then as best you can, just for now, as an experiment, could you let go of the push and allow things to go your way? That's not cheating. Westy used to say that release fully and allow them to have your way. He didn't mean it as a manipulation. But the more you allow life to be and people to be as they are, the more life and other people tend to cooperate, because they're not responding to the push. So in this moment, could you welcome any remaining push you feel, either generally or about a specific situation? And then could you be open as best you can to just simply allowing? And then again, could you welcome any remaining push? And then could you just simply welcome allowing? Let it be here. Just as an experiment to see how that feels. And then again, could you allow yourself to welcome any push you're experiencing in this moment? And then could you welcome the natural state of allowing, the natural state of flow, as best you can? And then could you welcome any remaining push? And then could you welcome allowing, being, allowing things to unfold or flow as they are? And could you do that even more? Could you just simply allow yourself to welcome the flow? Welcome allowing. Allow things to be the way they are, as best you can. And could you just simply let go and welcome allowing even more? And then could you just simply let go as best you can and welcome allowing even more? And could you just simply let yourself be that which you are? So experiment in life, letting go of the push, and see what happens when you allow even a little. You'll be really surprised in a really good way.
So softly open your eyes, and I invite you to take 3 deep breaths just to bring you back into the room. Thank you. I hope that was helpful and also supportive of experienced and embodied experience. And now I'm going to just briefly talk about the results. So I see that we have a lovely selection of different people in the room, and that's really wonderful to see as well, because I wasn't sure who would turn up. So please remember that there will be also a Menti at the end for your feedback. So at this present moment, I'm just going to remind you that the last part of the session you just listened to was the Sedona Method. And if you're interested in any more information about the Sedona Method, you can find it at www.sedona.org. And here's the Menti results. So, as I say, there's a lovely selection of different people in the room, and I can send you these results as well. So anybody that's interested in any of the information that I'm giving, you can get my email on the front screen of the presentation, or you can leave me your email in the chat as well, and I can download. I'll save all of that at the end. The results so far of get the right. Oh, where'd you go? Okay, so the words that people have come up with is meaning, emotion, knowing, peace, caring, lovely in person chatting, and peacefulness. That's wonderful. So yeah, all these are parts of the Menti that I've got behind me, because I wasn't able to have everything on the screen. I didn't want to be too disconcerting, so I decided that I would have it behind me instead. Now I would like to open up the floor. Please unmic yourselves and open to any questions, thoughts and reflections. This is your time, so anything that I can assist with, offer guidance, or please feel free to give me information and guidance as well, because I'm always looking for something.
Kim, I'd be interested to know a little bit more about the work that you do, and if you offer support to groups like the co-housing group that I'm sort of a new member of.
I do offer support to different people and groups. I'm a community worker, so I'm a community arts, community education, community development worker. And that was kind of what was wonderful about the collaboration with John Buck, because he's much more from a management position and management information, even though, as I say, he's not limited by any of that sort of, any specific things. He's gone and trained himself in many different areas. So for me, yes, I would be interested. Co-housing is another area that I'm very interested in myself. I feel that also for more people to be able to engage with it, I do feel that this embodied experience is necessary for people to have an understanding of what that truly means, especially when you're talking about investment of money, which that's part of my challenge with a lot of co-housing projects, is it's a huge amount of money, and where I'm very much about other kind of options. Sorry, Katrina, go for it.
So, and like really long-term decisions as well. So they're really like anxiety-provoking decisions, and I'm anticipating a lot of, I mean, from the first moment the first meeting, we've already had some, as I said, I won't go into specifics because that's unnecessary, but really high emotions, and someone who wanted to leave the group on what I perceived to be a misunderstanding. And this, for me, I've done quite a lot of work with sort of trauma techniques. So a lot of stuff around embodiment being so important to reconnect with your emotions and integrate them with the thinking part of your brain so that neither one is overpowering the other. That concept, like the wise mind, where you've got both your intellect and your emotions engaged, is really important to me. So thank you for the session.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I hope, I think that that's kind of my experience as well. And that was kind of why I've been looking for little tools to support people within their own journeys. And I think that that's also another part that people need to take responsibility for, is that actually to be part of this is not, even though absolutely there are people that are going to do certain parts of it that they have more skills, maybe around about funding applications, maybe around about, how you design or architecturally and things like that. But ultimately, it's if you're not engaged in yourself and have a way of managing your own emotional range of tolerance, then it's going to make it difficult. Anybody else that would like to and it's fine, even to give, a reflection of what the discussion was, if you didn't understand, if there's anything for class.
Yeah, if I could ask, there was something you mentioned about the 5 agreements and Totec or something that I didn't quite grasp. Maybe you could speak to that a bit more.
So the 5 agreements is, there's a book called The 4 Agreements, and then they brought out a 5th agreement, and I have to say they are very good at bringing kind of what Katrina and I were just talking about, the self-responsibility. It's based on
who's they?
So it's written by a man called Ruiz, R-U-I-Z. I have the details at the end of the presentation of his book. Toltec is the southern Mexican group. They're thousands of years old, and this actually is not new wisdom, it's old wisdom that's being re-enlivened by Ruiz, who is part of that lineage. So he has reawakened it by bringing it alive again in this current time. The book, as I say, that in the references at the end is noted in the references, and also I'm very happy to send this presentation to anybody. It's on Prezi, so it's actually accessible to everyone. So as I do appreciate my accent, or maybe tech has not allowed you to hear everything, but which is just sometimes the circumstances, you can access this to do it at your own time. Is that
the 5 agreement you didn't? They weren't part of the slides. You just spoke them, but it was a bit quick for me to write them down, and I wondered why you were bringing them in and what they were in the context of embodied sociocracy.
So what I found is that I present the 5 agreements at the beginning of any session. The 5 agreements are, number 1, be impeccable with your word. That's about speaking with integrity, saying what you mean. And that's again what we're saying about people understanding themselves better. Number 2 is don't take anything personally. So it's about realizing that nothing others do is because of you. So in other words, having this understanding that what's going on isn't personal. Number 3, don't make assumptions. So it's about finding the courage to ask questions and to express what you really want. And this is another part of embodying the choices that you have and how you can clarify, understand them better. And number 4, always do your best, which is what I've explained is actually what we're always doing in every moment. And that kind of feeds into the first 3. Always do your best, but remembering also that it changes from moment to moment. What you consider to be your best, but you're always doing your best. But however, circumstances and moment to moment, food, water, it could be also, the environmental circumstances. That makes change. That changes in your ability of your best. So always do your best. And the last one is be skeptical and learn to listen. I've been using this last one a lot because there is a real need to understand that the critiquing and critical evaluation is actually an important part of us discerning within our own instincts, within our understanding of what works for me and what doesn't work for me, and what speaks to me and what doesn't speak to me. So being skeptical and learning to listen is allowing when things don't work out or happen the way that you think, not judging, jumping, or like the other 4, making assumptions, taking it personally, and somehow not being impeccable with your word because suddenly your integrity feels compromised. So be skeptical and learn to listen feels like a really important one for me within a lot of the people, and that also links into suspending your disbelief. People are having an understanding that actually you can suspend your disbelief in comfort with guidance and support. Is that clearer, or is there anything else?
Yeah, thank you very much. Really interesting.
Thanks, Maddie. Andy?
Yeah, I'd like to take a turn in response. So nice to meet you, Kim, and your accent is beautiful. I agree. There's been a lot of comment in the chat. It's just an audio quality. But I want to acknowledge that as we started, you opened with drumming, and I so appreciate that. And I realized in my response that I'm detached from that practice of centering, grounding with drumming. And it was very interesting to me that my mind told me there was interference in the room. And in fact, you were centering and grounding us. So it was a bit of a, like 2 different worlds at the same moment.
Great, and that was kind of what I was wanting to bring into it as well. That the ancestral depth of some of these things that actually we are reawakening, we're remembering. This stuff isn't new. Most of the stuff, like co-housing, isn't new. Permaculture isn't new. These things are all old. It's just that it's important for us to remember them with a new sense of ourselves, because the world has transformed and changed, and we have many more elements and components that are going on for us. Is there anybody else that would like to say, comment, feedback? Joanne?
Yeah. Sorry, I can't see everyone. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. The drumming, I think it's just the quality again of the drum coming over the speaker, that it didn't quite sound like a drum. And I think that was because drums, they're gorgeous. I love them, and they are very centering. And unfortunately, that's a Zoom experience, I think. But besides that, am I allowed to be skeptical? Number 5?
Of course, please.
The practice at the end, I'm an embodied teacher, and I also work a lot with trauma. The practice at the end, the push and allowing, I feel there needs to be an invitation before going into that to really center, land in your body and hold your boundaries. Because there's stuff in our lives that we really should never have allowed, and we need a barrier, and sometimes we need a push. And that practice was very polarizing, that you either push or allow. And in my understanding at this point is there needs to be a safe boundary that you guard. You hold with an active push sometimes. And then there's times when you allow. So I think that for me, that needs to be more subtle, and people who are quite vulnerable need to be invited to protect themselves, to form a strong boundary, which in a way we would have in a co-housing project. As well as allowing, there would also be a gate or a membership or an invitation. There's not always an allowing. It's a very open position, which isn't often appropriate. And then even the Toltec wisdom, I always have a problem with doing your best, because that's always a choice. We aren't always doing our best. And maybe I should speak personally. I know I am not always doing my best, and sometimes I do, and that's usually a push. And I suppose any athlete would say that as well, that you don't always do your best. You sometimes hold your best and that energy for when you need that push. The making assumptions as well. I think that's our safe way of going out in the world. Like, you keep questioning, keep the skepticism or whatever, but we could only go out the door with a certain set of learned assumptions. Otherwise, everything's constantly new. So I think assumptions can be good as long as you're keeping a questioning about them. But that's how we bring our world experience. What we've learned and witnessed repeatedly become our set of assumptions. And that, again, is a safety and a boundary. And don't take anything personally. I think it's very good to actually question, did I actually bring that on, or did I cause that? Or is there something about me that elicits this response? And taking stuff personally, I think, is a very healthy engagement with the world. I don't think we should assume that it's personal. But I think it's really good, because again, most of us will have repeated situations we land in and repeated responses. That it's good to learn from that. So I think taking it personally can be very healthy, as well as allowing that it's not all about me, and it's not always about me, and then the questioning and the finding out about the situation, the other person. But sometimes, yeah, I did it again, is a healthy response.
Joanna, sorry, I just need to jump into it with Andy, just in case it's
sorry, I actually can't see you on the screen, and I've been asking for the backdrop to be removed so we could see each other. Because there are little thumbnails in the corner on my screen, and not everyone's there. So it would be, I don't know if you've been trying to indicate that you wanted to speak. So sorry about that, I can't see you.
Folks, I'm sorry to say, but we're at time.
Yes,
Kim, would you like to have some final words?
Just that, thank you so much, Joanne. It was really interesting. The information that I've been giving is here, some of the things that are referenced. Not all these things are mine, and also these are parts of toolkits. So I agree with Joanne that there are certain times when things need to be seen in a different light. I'm talking about I think for me, it's about the facilitation of sociocracy and the embodied experience of the transformative thinking. That really, that's where I'm coming to with this stuff. I agree that it's not for every circumstance, and it is about you understanding yourself better, to understand your group better, to understand what would work for them and would work with them. The last thing is just that the mentee is the last mentee that is 3427.3. That's for the evaluation. And just say thank you very much. If any presenters, anybody else here is presenting later on today, I wish you well, and I really appreciate everybody's participation and time. Thank you so much for coming and joining us.
Thank you so much, Kim. Our next group will be starting in 4 minutes.
Andy, well, could you, in the chat, could you